Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Shout out to Charles Irby. Assalamu alaikum, akh. He sent something to me, and I saw it less than a minute before I started this recording. And it was about Muhammad Hijab, who is an Egyptian Britisher living in the UK right now. He performs da'wah. He calls people to Islam, and he calls Muslims to take their religion more seriously, which is actually most important. And so, of course, I'm going to respect that kind of field, naturally. Why wouldn't I? But apparently he's decided to critique Kevin Samuels, and he decided to speak on behalf of black women. In 2017, I would have said, yes, speak in their defense, even though that was the year I decided I would never approach, second time I decided I would never approach a black American woman again. Maybe not even from the continent, because my memory was jarred that summer. I still would have said, yeah, speak in their defense, because I do see them as being traumatized. Even to this day, I do see that. Some people in the Goldensphere would say to me, no, they're not traumatized. Stop making excuses for them. Shut up. My answer to that would be, no. Traumatized people will traumatize other people at times. If they don't contain it, they'll bleed on others. No, that's what happens. Two things can be true at the same time. That can happen. I've listened to people in the manosphere and the Goldensphere descend into debates because they can't remember that two things could be true at the same time. They don't have to, everything's not mutually exclusive to each other. Now, granted, the sky can't be blue and red at the same time unless a part of the sky is red. But I mean, the whole sky can't be two colors at one time. The whole sky. Two colors at one time, but it's all one color. No, I mean, when you're not dealing with mutually exclusive facts like that, they could both be true. And I watch people who can't understand nuance, and then they descend into these debates. I've seen it with the Goldensphere. I saw it with the manosphere before. I saw it with pro-blacks before. I've seen it across the board. So I'm recording this to say, again, look, I done said this before. Muhammad Hijab, salam alaikum to you, bro, but you can get this work too. I'm going to tell you why. If you want to talk about the trauma they have gone through outside of America, due to colorist people like your people, even though you're not a colorist or a racist bastard, you're not, I know, but the fact is your people are, your nationality is, I know, because Sudanese have written and talked about how they get sick and tired of just walking to work. They can hear every morning, ya smart, ya chocolate. They get sick and tired of hearing people they don't even know saying this, and they're on African soil. So what I mean is, you're not wrong for giving da'wah. You're not wrong for speaking up for those who have actually been oppressed. But when you're sitting up here defending them from the accountability they deserve, which they're getting from Mr. Samuels, that's a disgrace, because I shouldn't have to sit up here and take the side of Mr. Samuels against you. As a Muslim, I shouldn't have to do that. But in the interest of fairness, that's what I got to do. Muhammad Hijab, close your mouth, bro. Kevin Samuels is right. The sisters are wrong. They're dodging accountability. They are refusing it. The black American woman, sir, is not like the black Egyptian woman. She's not like the black Sudanese woman. She's not like I know she's not like the black Somali woman. Saying black and Somali is redundant in case some of y'all didn't know, by the way. I know they're not like the Ethiopian woman. No, the Western black woman as a whole is a problem. And I'm willing to make an exception in the Goldensphere for now to give them a chance to be fair, because that sphere is new. And I have seen the women go various directions within the sphere. Again, to be fair, that's what I actually observed. But when you're dealing with the spheres of influence within the West that have been around for a long time, the long extant demographics in the West, Muhammad Hijab, the fact is the black Western woman is terrible, hands down. That's it. How do I know? I was raised by a Western woman, and she told me that. She said the same thing. And she was talking about the Western black woman. She said to me, black, I get on you. I mean, she actually said to me, you don't have a history of choosing good girlfriends and wives, but I'll say that you have chosen good mothers. I mean, they turned out some really wonderful grandkids. But as wives and girlfriends, you really don't make the best choices. And I think that you finally did make a good choice. You seem happy and she sounds happy on the phone because they haven't met. And I said, Mom, you were right that I didn't have a good history of that. But what you didn't understand when I was trying to tell you this years ago was that everybody else out there that I didn't choose was worse. That's what you failed to understand. And I had to remind her, do you remember MK? I'm using initials here. Do you remember MK? Well, she was probably one of the most upright and closest to our class women that had a crush on me. She kept it a secret for years, Mom. When I finally called her and gave her a shot, she flaked. What you want me to do? You remember the Jones lady from our neighborhood? Really sharp, very with it and all that, but she was just always so busy, and she bragged about how busy she was all the time. She just didn't have time for anybody. Now she's with a white guy. So, at the end of it all, I have to say that I even had to tell her, and she had to admit, yes, it is vast, it's terrible now, it's really bad. Terrible. And I said to her, Mom, at this point, the mother of your grandson is actually still one of the better ones because the others out there even worse. Because now we got to deal with a very militant brand of feminism. And my mother said to me even, don't engage with feminists, son. They are rabid and they're mad. They're not normal. They're not even sane. I've dealt with them before. I told her, I know. What I'm telling you, Mom, is that most Western women now are the rabid feminists. Most of them are. Even when they don't hate men, they still don't think we're equal. And she said, is it really that bad? I mean, you don't even live here anymore. I told her, yeah, I know. I've been monitoring the situation from afar. Keep in mind, I still work with teachers that are from the West. Remember what I told you about in 2018? That was the first time you told me don't argue with feminists. Mom, most of them were like that. I married one of 4 that wasn't. Understand that. So Muhammad Hijab, you can close your mouth, bro. This is the time in the day, it is overdue time for the American black woman and other Western black women that emulate her to take accountability and to not try to share it with us, let alone shift it on to us. We are accountable for one thing, Muhammad Hijab, and I've already admitted this, and a lot of brothers have said the same thing. We have made sex and by extension other things too easy for them. There is our accountability. Rubel Zaman is not even a da'i, but you know what? He defends Kevin Samuels, and he's also a Muslim Britisher. I don't know where his people are from. I assume they're from somewhere in the subcontinent, but I could be wrong. I don't even care. That man defends Kevin Samuels from across the pond. Why? Because he knows that the Western woman's a problem. And I'm going to say something to Jordan Peterson, too, Dr. Jordan Peterson of Canada. Yeah, you can get this work, too, blood. And I'm going to tell you straight, you can have a doctorate, and that's good. You can be a professor. And I'm fine with the way that you've advocated for men previously, but you sat up and said something about MGTOWs being a bunch of weasels. You had to issue an apology for that. Sir, you don't understand how militant this thing has gotten. That you try to put accountability on men. Well, if the men have a problem with the women as a creature, then something's wrong with the men. Most of us don't know whether to have a problem with the woman as a creature or not because we're not sure she's created as bad as what we see in the West. We can't tell. Most of us can't. I had to leave the West to find out how bad they were. I'm telling you, I don't hate them as a creature, sir. I'm telling you that the Western woman is the wicked witch of the West by default. White or black, Dr. Peterson, American or Canadian. That's what I'm telling you. Now, I previously stated in this recording why I'm willing to at least accept the possibility of an exception. To be fair, they can prove me wrong or right. It's up to them. But the default is exactly what the hell I said. You've already seen that, Dr. Peterson. Most of the men in Canada are accepting of the rules about how you have to so-called properly pronoun somebody, which is what got you in trouble because you rightly refused to change people's pronouns, and I'm proud of you for that. But it's really y'all's business. I ain't Canadian, and I ain't white. But then again, the thing is that it's usually the men who accept this sort of thing. It's oftentimes the ladies that are calling for it, sir. And you know the stats. In Scandinavian countries, they still want traditional men while they remain rabid feminists. So don't sit up there and tell Hafiz from the Roommates podcast that it's on the men to level up. No, bro, you don't understand. And you admitted that you may not understand certain cultural nuances. You admitted to that. Well, I'm telling you, sir, that was one of the smartest things you said. But talking about in the West in general, in other words, you admitted that black folk might have a different dynamic. Thank you. I'm telling you that your people do not have one. The white Westerners are going through the same thing with your women. Matter of fact, the one thing that white and black women have done is compare notes and feed off each other. I'm not saying that the white woman has been there for the black woman in the feminist movement. I'm just saying that they've compared notes. That's all. That's what I'm getting at. So the fact remains, sir, that you want to sit up and say, well, it's the men, and the women are right if they're turning down most of the men. Maybe, maybe not. The issue is, sir, that while women may not naturally want most of the men they see, that's fine. In the West, they do go for the same few men, and they do influence each other's choices, and they brag and boast about this sort of thing. So in the end, sir, the fact remains that they are all turning down the same majority of men, and they're all pursuing the same minority. And most men are like, you know what, even if we so-called leveled up, they just moved the goalpost. And that's the part you overlooked, sir. You don't tell men to simply level up in order to attract the women. Well, pay attention to how you dress. If every man pays attention to how he dresses, they'll just change their minds. You know fucking well that a man can dress nice. She's going to pass up that guy to go for the guy with the tattoos and the t-shirt on because he got muscles. And I said it that way for a reason. I'm telling you, sir, at the end of it all, there's nothing to hold the Western man accountable for in general when it comes to the ladies. Other things, yeah. But outside of us being too, what we need to do is stop being so easy. You ever thought of that? Did you realize that a lot of men are actually losing their libidos because of the stress? Libidos are being lost because of the stress. I know. I went through that. I remember when I was younger and some of the guys saying, man, how come you don't even seem to need the punani? I remember being asked that question, and I was trying to figure out not why they would like it, but why it was that they were so reliant on it when it got up and ran from them. I was trying to figure out, well, it's obviously not going to be easy for you. Why are you reliant upon something that gets up and runs? If every man leveled up. Really, bro? You think they're not going to move the goalpost? All they're going to do is filter out the majority. The best thing for men to do is to learn something that lowers the libido while they're young. That's actually the best thing right now. Nothing else is going to work. And frankly, Dr. Jordan Peterson, in case you haven't noticed, the women are on social media complaining about not being approached. That's also worked. Which may be partially, not solely, but partially a byproduct of men losing their libido. The testosterone levels have gone down. That's an adaptation, sir. We don't need the same testosterone levels that maybe our grandparents did. And how did that serve them? During our grandfathers' times, what was the likelihood of them ever finding someone? I mean, we're obviously the descendants of those who did, but what was the likelihood of them finding somebody, sir? You've already said it. We got half as the human species, not every individual, but you're the one I heard say that that the human species has half as many male ancestors as female ancestors. So many people are the descendants of Genghis Khan. Wait, what? So after Adam, the father of us all, the man who has the most descendants living today is Genghis Khan? What does that tell you, sir? I'm telling you, if God gives us a moral command, but nature's something else, then you obey God and disobey nature. That's what I'm saying. Because he's the God of nature. He can tell us to disobey nature, and we're okay. We do that, and that's fine. You're saying, well, you as a man need to disobey your nature, but let them obey theirs. Are you effing kidding me? You're still pandering. And you're disappointed a bunch of men that had the nerve to listen to you. You need to go back on the Roommates podcast and say, no, you know what? There needs to be a give and take, because that's really all anybody's asking for. All I've asked for is a give and take. Just Beeb, a give and take. That's it. Oh, congratulations on finding somebody dumb enough to pay for an apartment for you in exchange for nothing, which I think that's what you're telling me, that it's in exchange for nothing. If you found that, congratulations, but that's not going to last forever, because as I wrote in my community tab post, I'm getting I'm getting the young men here hip to the game, and I want them to share this with not just other Arabs in other places, but other Muslims, period. My job is to teach them English. Morally speaking, it's okay for me to tell them about this gender war, because all I'm really telling them to do is obey the law anyway, and how to do it in an intelligent way. That the red pill just takes care of itself. Matter of fact, some of them already know about it, and they're sharing this. I don't even have to do as much as what some might think. So, just be, like I say, congratulations. Just understand it's going to come to an end, and it may come to an end before you lose your looks. It may not, but it comes to an end at some point. Don't go telling other women they can find the same thing. It's not guaranteed. It's actually guaranteed to shrink. The likelihood is guaranteed to shrink. So getting back to you, Dr. Peterson. All I'm saying is an even exchange, bruh. And it's time for you to go back and say, no, you know what? If the ladies are entitled to just give in to their nature, then you know what, men? You're entitled to the same thing. If you're not, then neither are they. You can find satisfaction together, or nobody gets it. That's how it works. Because, see, I never say that the men should be oppressing the women. I never call for that. What I have said is that the men should either evade the efforts in the gender war, or they must win. And winning in the gender war means things like, winning in divorce court. That's what it means for the most part. Not losing your chastity and your dignity, let alone your resources. And not losing legally or romantically. That's what that means. As a matter of fact, nowadays for most men, winning means not even having any children, because they'll be used against you as a pawn. Why the hell would she not do so? That's really what it means at this point. Not losing your money, not having any children. That's what that means. But all I've said to men is you just don't lose. I haven't said to men, oppress women, take and don't give. And that's what, in a nutshell, that's what you're saying, Dr. Peterson. Well, give but don't take. Don't call them to govern their nature with their logic. Don't tell them to do that. They don't have to. It's not their nature. But govern your nature with your logic. Excuse me. Of course, we're going to have logic. That's a part of our nature, sir. But what? Just let them judge like animals? Which may not even be a part of their nature, because although many women naturally don't look at most men as attractive, the difference is that when you're in other societies, women still have different taste in men, and they're allowed to. In the West, they're not even allowed that. Don't lie about it, sir. And you had a good point about men. Men should not bash their wives and badmouth their wives. They shouldn't do it. You had a valid point about that. By the same token, sir, you as a married man know the foolishness and illogic of which ladies can be capable. You know that. Should men not ask each other for advice? And that's a different question. You may have a different answer to that. But sir, the minute you say something that does not involve a give and take, the minute you say something like that, I'm going to call you on it, because I do it to anybody. You just heard me calling, if you ever hear this, Dr. Peterson, you just heard me calling out a Muslim brother in the UK for doing that same thing. I done already said, and I said this long time ago, Don Calypso, how long ago was it that you first heard me say, Brother Imam and Habiba can get it too? I forgot how long ago I recorded that. But yeah, they can catch it too. You old ass African American imams sitting up behind your pulpits on the minbar telling brothers what we need to do for the women, and you don't have nothing to say to them. I mean, sometimes y'all will say, now ladies, you got your role to play too. But getting back to the brothers, because that's where the screw up is. No, ninja, the screw up is with them. Even in the Muslim community, it ain't been no different. Habib is ratchet. As a matter of fact, a non-Muslim woman that's a feminist might say the chores and the bills need to be 50-50. She might say that. A Muslim woman that's a feminist is going to say, no, you pay everything and the chores are 50-50. She'll point to a Quran verse talking about what the man's supposed to do. Minute he says, and it points to verses about what she's supposed to do, like obey. And what's the first thing she gonna do? She wants to talk about context. There's a verse that says, don't sleep in the bed with her when she gets disrespectful. There's never a verse that says to the wife, when your husband doesn't obey you, then deny him the punani and don't sleep in the same bed. There's no verse like that. That is only a verse for the man when she decides that she's going to disobey when he's being responsible. And usually it means in the case of bad character and bad morality. That's where you start to find that. And y'all don't have the decency at times to sit up and admit that things are different, that Habiba's not the same as her mother, definitely not the same as her grandmother, and hell, a lot of their mothers were ratchet. Some of you might remember me telling you about my wife's friend. She's from a city with a lot of Muslims. Grew up Muslim her whole life. She was traumatized by some of the mistreatment from her mom. Not that she hates her mom, but she was traumatized by some of that mistreatment. And you know what? Her dad fell for the whole you need to be a good stepdad routine. In order for him to get married, he could only marry somebody. He got to a point that there wasn't nobody that was going to marry him without kids. So her mom didn't want him around much. He got married to a woman with some babies, some chillins, and he treated them well. He'd have treated his own kids well if he'd been allowed to be around them, but she was allowed around him when she was an adult, finally. At that point, he'd had more time to have a bond with his stepkids than with his own. And her mother slapped her. Growing up, somebody else thought she stole something. Her mother didn't ask her nothing, just went ahead and slapped her immediately, assuming she actually stole it. Then the lady found it somewhere else. I'm sorry. And her mom didn't have the decency to say, damn, I was wrong. Let me make this up to you. I know because she sat at a table and told us this when we were eating dinner once, about how traumatic the way she was raised was. Even now, she said, and that's the one that said that the only thing she misses about marriage is the arguments, because the men have a need to be logical and she can always use that against them. Just throw out emotion and no logic. She sat there and said this to us and explained it. Yeah, it's the same lady. She'd been traumatized. So even the previous generation of Muslim women weren't like, there was no good old days. So when you old-fashioned imams want to talk about, sister, don't ask me as your wali to go and find you someone. If they're interested, they'll come talk to me. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Because young brothers in the Muslim community, they're the ones who are supposed to be the most chaste. That means they learn firsthand. Do not say anything to ladies outside of them being related to you or it's business. Don't do it. Don't flirt. Don't even ask her, can he talk to her wali? Because she's more likely going to say, hell no, ninja, and they go brag to her friends about it. And as a matter of fact, I've heard women get upset about that. I've heard women get upset when men talk to them and don't talk to their wali or their father. And then I've heard them get upset when a man comes to them and asks them, may I talk to your father or your wali? I've heard men get and by well-meaning women, it's no different. There's a reason why men in the West are mad, Dr. Peterson, and it's about high time you admit that the men are right and the women aren't. F out of here. You sat there and heard the illogical arguments these feminists have tried to make and cutting you off and trying to hardball you with questions and put words into your mouth. You seen them do that. You sat in those interviews when they tried that, and you were rightfully lauded for handling them pretty well, sir. Well, the men need to know. What the men need to do is lower the libidos even more. Fasting helps. And leave these ladies the hell alone outside of business or if they're related. Because nothing gets results like the loss of options. Nothing does. Ain't a woman under the wall. Ain't a woman younger than hitting the wall's age that's going to shape the F up until she loses options. Most of the time, they just don't lose options till they hit the wall. And that's been our mistake as men. We sit up and see them act this way and say, well, they're just being ladies. They can't help it. No, shuck that fit. If that's the case, then how are they ever mature enough for a sexual relationship? In or out of marriage? How are they ever adult enough for that mentally if they can't do any better? Man, fit the guck out my face with that show bit. You just pissed on your own PhD. All I got is a master's in something completely unrelated, and I can see through that. This either goes two ways. We either have, it's simple. All the men in the West are really saying, because I ain't heard a man yet sit up and say, well, you know, the game is all about you take everything and you give nothing in exchange. I ain't heard a man say that yet. I've heard some teenage boys say stuff like that, stupid stuff. That was when I was a teenager. You know, dumb stuff. I never heard one of them talk like this past 17. Never did. Matter of fact, I started hearing a lot of them say, I ain't going to do nothing I don't want nobody doing to my sister, my aunt, or my cousin, or nothing like that. Nothing. I've never heard a woman say, I'm not going to do this man in a way that I wouldn't want somebody to do my brother or my son. I ain't heard a woman say that. Matter of fact, never their brother. Now, I've never heard women actually start to sympathize with men without having sons. Tell the truth about it. So what we're saying, Dr. Peterson, is that we're demanding a give and take. That's it. Nothing other than that, a give and take. And this alone is enough to trigger some ladies. And Hafiz, I was very patient of you to sit through this stuff. But Hafiz, that's not I know you're entitled to your opinion, but that's really not even a fair message to give. And I saw one guy underneath Steph's Cole's video talking about nice guys deserve to finish last. Man, F you with a capital F. I don't care how young you were thinking this stuff, man. Do men need to work on ourselves? Yeah, for ourselves. Shout out to Lionel MGTOW. BYFY. Better yourself for yourself. Shout out to him for that. So yeah, we would need to for ourselves. But this thing about nice guys deserve to finish last, what you're doing is you're justifying their hybristophilia. Because see, part of hybristophilia is that you cannot tell the difference between a man having good manners and a man being a wimp. And that's exactly what the problem is with the Wicked Witch of the West. That's some teenagers haven't always been that stupid throughout time. But in the West, recently, this is something that this generation's gone through. I came up with the generation that had that problem. In the 90s, teenage girls they had finally become entirely too stupid to tell the difference between a man with manners and a wimp. I didn't realize that's why some of them were so quick to argue with me. Till somebody told me. Like with many other things. And what's happening now is that unfortunately, this generation or this current age group of teens ain't outgrowing it because matter of fact, really, if I'm honest about it, we got some ladies that were in their 30s and 40s when I was 18 and 19 that still hadn't outgrown it. The difference is they were mad ghetto or hella ghetto, however you all would call it. Insanely ghetto, severely ghetto. That's how they were back there. Now you got regular run-of-the-mill ladies that go into their 30s and they can't tell the difference. And this is what I want you young men to understand. If you think that a guy being a nice guy automatically makes him beta and therefore undeserving of, I don't know, even just being respected by women, gentlemen, you are sitting up and saying it's okay for them to be animals. You deserve to have a rough time for not being an animal enough. Excuse me? Human beings are animals, but we are human. And we don't have to sit up here. Look, The parts of us that are animalistic as men, these women are looking at and cursing God for making. How dare you turn around and act like it's okay for them to be this way, but not for men? You think you're being cold. I'm not talking against Steph cold. I'm talking about somebody in the comments section. You think you're being cold like Mr. Klingscales. He didn't sit up and justify that stuff. He just said that's what it is. When he changes his voice and does the imitation of the beta, he's mostly going in about the naivety, not because you have manners, because you act like a human being. So you see a lot of you in the manosphere are still, you don't realize that you're just reversed simping. You're still pandering. Of course, you're going to protect a lady if she's with you. She's either related to you or married to you. Many of you would protect a woman if she's just a business partner and you're just in a situation in which she needs it. Many of you would do it even then. And you're morally fine for doing that. I mean, morally speaking, I commend that. But the thing is, they assume that you would never do something like this. Why do they assume that you would never protect them, never defend them? Because they're walking around making these assumptions about most men by default instead of even giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. You have manners. You're nice to people. That's enough for them to say he's a wimp. And frankly, I'm getting sick and tired of y'all hearing that. I mean, y'all saying that. How stupid do you have to be to sit up here and justify an adult acting like not only a child, but a non-human species? If that's the case, you should be celibate. If that's what you think about these ladies, that it's okay for them to be that way, you should be celibate. Because most of us aren't into children, and a lot of you act like it's okay for them to be kids and still catch a ding-a-ling. No, it's not. It's not the case. We've allowed them to behave at an intellectual level of someone that is mentally incapable, mentally undercapacitated, special needs. We've allowed them to function like that at intellects below their age-appropriate level, even as though they have never hit puberty. We've allowed them to have even that warped sense of morality. And still catch a ding-a-ling. That's on us. That's what I meant when I said we made this too easy. I mean, they're wrong for not growing up, but we're wrong for sexually rewarding that sort of thing. And even the women who can't stand me for calling for a give and take, they will say to me, well, you guys make it too easy. That's one thing in which we agree. Bossies agree with me about that. And the thing is, there's something else too. As much as Bossy and I disagree on what's fair or how the importance of fairness, one thing she told another man, it wasn't me, she told another man, she said to him, I don't believe that men are governed by sex. Now, she may underestimate naturally how strong of a drive it is. Not because women don't have it, but because women don't have to do anything to satisfy it. So she may underestimate how important it becomes to men. But she is right that it is not something we cannot control. Mind you, I'm talking about someone who can't stand me. We are diametrically opposed. Yet and still, this is one of the things she has rightly said. It ain't something you can't control. And what I'm saying, gentlemen, is, I know I fasted and found out accidentally that lowered the libido even more than what I had from stress. You understand? So I know that works. I know that the libidos can be lowered. I've also, another thing I found, as a matter of fact, I discovered this accidentally when I was outside in the cold for a long time, which is generally not healthy. But I found that merely exposing your junk to some cold temperatures for a long time, like an ice pack, as if you're holding it up to an injury, that does it. I don't know what the long-term health problems or side effects might be, but what I'm saying is that lowering the libido was actually much easier than many of us think. And If you do these things when you are young, it changes your perspective. You no longer have to wait till you're in your late 30s or 40s to be able to start thinking more clearly. No, you're like, nope, my stomach is empty. I'm thinking about food. Thinking about a glass of water. Or my stomach's half empty. I know I'm going to get hungry in a few hours. So therefore, what she's doing, I can understand. It's nice, but it's really not that important. What is important is the next time I get to eat. You begin to actually, and the funny thing is when you fast, you realize how much more important water is even than food. You realize that too. So I don't want to hear this stuff about how we can't have standards and demand more out of them. There are men out there who wind up putting guns to their mouths and pulling the trigger, committing suicide, not only because of what women think about them, but because they come to realize how easily they get taken advantage of simply because no one told them this stuff. Legally, they can be taken advantage of, and how undervalued they are. And as I said before, gentlemen, that undervaluing comes about when we make things too easy. You lower the libido and you will see, like I said, I didn't say you have to lower your sense of romance. You lower the libido and you will see how easy it is to turn away for other reasons, like not being mature enough. And think about that, did you? That's when they start asking, what are we doing wrong? Where did we screw up? Nobody's coming to talk to us. Yep, I know. And that's when you're in this position to answer that question instead of with a long answer, with a very short answer. What you did wrong is everything you would not want a lady to do to your son. That's what you did wrong. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. I mean, that's what you would say to them. But on the real, yeah, thank y'all for listening to this. I hope it helps. I really do. Black heart, black mind, blackout. Now you know why I say assalamu alaikum. Black, heterosexual, non-select, male power. And MLS, non-select, heterosexual, male power. And black and MLS patriarchy until extinction or judgment day.